to section 11, which is entitled Averages. Suppose that you want to find the average of these three numbers, 85, 89, and 96. There's a number of ways of doing it. One way, this is the way I did it when I was a student, I would look at this and I would think, I don't know, it's an 89 average. So this is 4 points below. I can borrow 4 points from the 96 and make this an 89. This average, the average of these three numbers, 85, 89, and 96, excuse me, is the same as the average of 89, 89, and 92. When 92, it has 3 extra points above 89. Well, I could take away 2 points from the 92, give 1 to the 89, and give 1 to the 89. And the top 3 grades, that average, is the same as getting a 90, a 90, and a 90. So the average is 90. Another way of doing it, the more formal way is, you can add up the 3 grades and divide by 3. 9 and 6 is 15, plus 5 more is 20. 2 and 8 is 10. And 8 is 18. And 9 is 27. And then you divide the sum of the 3 numbers by 3. 3 goes right into 27 evenly. And 0 evenly. And there is your average, 90. Try another one. Suppose you want the average of these 3 numbers. 78, 84, and 87. Well, it looks like an 83 to me. So I can borrow 1 from this number, so now it's 83, and give it to this one. This one doesn't have enough. I can borrow 4 from there. That would make it an 83, and put the 4 here. That would make it an 83. If you took 3 exams and you got 83 in each of them, your average is 83. What if you didn't guess it correctly? What if you guessed 85? Well, 85 is a pretty bad guess, but if you borrow 2 from here, you can add 1 here, and you can add 1 here. Well, those aren't the same 3 grades, so maybe it was 84. You can borrow 1 from here, and 1 from here. So you borrowed 2, and you put them here. So that's 81. Well, that's still not the same 3 numbers. You can borrow 1 from here and here. That'll make them both 83s. You borrowed 1 and 1. That is, you borrowed 2. You add it to 81. What do you know? You get 83. The other way is add up the 3 numbers. 15 and 4 is 19. 8, 8, and 8. It's 3 times 8. 20. And when you divide this number by 3, why 3? Because we're taking the average of 3 numbers. 3 goes right into 4 evenly 8 times. And 3 goes into 9 evenly 3 times. And there is your average, 83. It is 3 different ways. In each way, we got 80. So we did it 2 different ways. We got 83 in all of them. What if you want a 90 average? You 86 and a 95. What should the last exam be? What should you get on the last exam? Well, there are a number of ways of doing this. The 3 exams should add up to whatever 90 times 3 is. That is, it should be the same as if you got 90, 90, and 90. They should add up to 270. Well, you have 86, you have 95, you have an unknown number, and when we add them, you want 270. Well, 6 and 5 is 11, and you want to get a 0. 270. 11 plus 9 is 20, but more importantly, it ends in a 0. 2 plus 8 is 10, plus 9 is 19. You want 27. 19 and 8 is 27. That's the exam that's the grade you should get on your last exam. Another way of doing it is you can add up the 86 and the 95, you get 181. If you want 270 points in total, and you already have 181. That means you need an 89 on the last exam. Okay. One last way of doing it. The 86 is 4 points shy. So you can borrow the 4 points from here and make the 86 a 90. So you have a 90. You have 1 extra point here. You have a 90, well, you just need an 89 here. Because when you give it the point, you'll have a 90. The point from the 91. No matter how you look at it, you need an 89. And you should see it all of these ways. It shouldn't be brutal like, I'm going to go home and memorize things. No, it should be intuitive. You should see it. Okay, suppose you want a 60 average. And you got a 52 in the first test, and a 62 on the second test, and a 59 on the third test, and a 66 on the fourth test, and maybe a 70 on the fifth test, and the last test, the sixth exam, it didn't come up yet. But you want a 60 average. Let's see what's going on. A's are 90s, the greater B is the 80, C's are 70s. Well, you're hoping to just pass. You want a D. You want a D. Okay. Now, what you can do is say, well, I have a couple of extra points from the 62. I'll give it to the 52. That makes it like a 54. And I have 6 points extra from the 66. If I give it to the 54, it'll be exactly 60. It is this average, at least of the first 5 exams, is the same as getting a 60, a 60, a 59, and a 60. It's the same as getting 52, 62, 59, 66, and 70. Okay. You borrow 1 point from the 69 to make the 59 a 60. Right. So, basically, you have 9 extra points for free. You have a free 9 points. That is, you just need a 51. Because when you take the 9 away from the 69, and you give it to the 51, you got all 60s. Another way of doing it is you taking a total of 6 exams, so you want a total of 360 points. Well, you got a 50. 2 and a 62 and a 59 and a 66 and a 70, and you don't know, and you want it to add up to at least 360. So let's find out the lowest grade you can get. 2 and 2 is 4, 6 is 10, I love 10s, plus 9 is 19. But I want it to end in a 0, so I'll add 1, that's 20. 5, 10, 6, 18, 25, 31. I want 36. 51. Need a 51 last exam. The last way to do it, or another way of doing it, is you can add up what you have so far, which I guess is 309. The add is you'll get 309. If you want 360 in total, well, when you take away the 309, get 51. Now, how about this one? How about this problem? Suppose you got a 64, a 65, 67, 63, 68, and you're taking your last exam. Now, might you get the C? Remember, C's are in the 70s, and D's is any grade in the 60s. Can you get a 70? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, one thing is you need 6 points here, and 5 points here, and 3 points here, and 3 points here, and, well, something went wrong there. The last 2 were wrong. To get a 70, you need an extra, somewhere you have to come up with an extra 7 points for the 63, and an extra 2 points for the 68. Okay, that is you need 6, 11, 21, you need 23 extra points. Plus you need the 70 on that last exam at least. You need to get a 93 on this last exam. Why? Because 93 happens to be 70 plus 6 plus 5 plus 3 plus 7 plus 2. You need a 70 for that last exam. To count for the last exam, you need 6 points to make up for the first exam, because it was 6 points below 70. You need 5 points for their second exam extra. You need to get a 93 on this last exam. Good luck. You took 5 exams, you only can get in the 60s. You're not good enough to get 93 in this subject. Maybe you get hundreds in other subjects, but whether it's math or whatever, you're just not good enough to get 90s. So, you're not going to get the C. The question is, how likely are you to get the D? How likely are you to get a D? Well, when it comes to the D, which the lowest grade is 60, here you have an extra 4 points, an extra 5 points, 7, and 3, and 8. You have 10, 18, 22. You have 27 extra points. That is, you don't even need to get a 60. You can get 27 points below 60. That is, you can get a 33 on that last exam, and you will have a 60 average. Because you can take the 4 points from the 64 and make that a 37. And the 5 points from the 65, that means you have a 60, and here it's as if you got a 42. You could think of getting the 60 on that third exam, but rather than thinking of having gotten the 33 in the last exam, you can think you got 49. Think of this as 60. That is, add the 3 points here. Think of this as a 60. Add the 3 points here. You have nothing but 60s in this scenario. That is, you only need a 33%. Now, what I'm going to get at is very important as a student. Possibly, you can get a 33 without studying at all. Let's assume that's true. Let's assume that you can get a 33 without studying at all. I guess I shouldn't say this, but I will. Don't study for this test. Study for your other courses. Study for your other courses. Maybe in another course you had 68, 68, 69, 70. That is, you're 2, 4, 5 points short of having a 70 average. That is, if you only got 5 points above 70, you will get the C. Study for this exam. Study for this exam. Don't study for an exam where you need to get 33 and you can do that in your sleep. Don't say, yeah, I don't want a 33, I want a 63, I'm going to study. Fine, you get the 63, but you still get the D. It didn't help, called inefficient studying. Don't study for a course won't sit down where it will not affect your grade. It will not affect your grade sometimes. Take for example, if you took 9 exams, and boy, you're a good student. You're a good student only when you study. And boy, you study. The first test you got 100, the second test you got 100, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, and the ninth test, you also got 100. And there's one more. You know what? You can get a 0 on that test. Why? Because you have 10 extra points here. Remember, 90s are 8s. You got 10 extra points here. What are you going to do with them? You're going to put it here. 10 plus 10 plus another 10. You're going to do that 9 times because you have 10 points extra on 9 exams. That's a 90. I won't study for that test. And fine, if it's the only course you're taking, if you want to study, that's good. You'll learn more. But if you're taking other courses, and maybe in another course, you got 88, 89, 89, 90, you should study a lot for that next exam instead of studying for this exam where you can get a 0 and still get a 90 and still get an A. You can get a 0 and still get an A. Study for this exam. You're shy of a 90, that is for an A, by 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, still 4 points. You just need 4 extra points. If you get a 94, you'll get the A. And it's not so insane that you get a 94. You've been getting really close to 94. Okay, you've been getting very close to 90s. In fact, one exam you hit it. So sometimes it's more efficient not to study for, say, your final. Okay, now go and tell your teachers that it doesn't pay to study for a final. But to be honest, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. I took a course once where I had an A average, and the teacher said, I dropped your last exam. I didn't study for the last exam. I studied for other courses instead. Okay, because even whether you got between a 0 or 100, you get an A. This last test will not lower your average. Because if it were going to lower your average, it would be, well, it doesn't have to be, if it would lower it below an A, it would, well, that's not true either. If it would lower it below an A, then that grade had to be below 90. It would have to be below 90. And if you didn't count it, well then you still have your A average. You still have your A average. If it was like the highest grade or higher than your average went up. Well, maybe you went from 92 to 93 or 92 to 95 or 98 to 99. But you know what? It's still an A. Shouldn't spend that much time studying or preparing for that last exam. Okay, and you should definitely spend a few minutes when you're preparing for your finals to think about what is my best strategy. Should I put more energy into this or more energy into that? Okay. Suppose you want the average of 60 inches, 64 inches, 54 inches, and say 58 inches. Now, if you did this, 60, 64, 54, 58, add them up, say 16, 11, and 11 is 22, plus 1 is 23, and then you divide this by, divide it by 4, I guess you get 59, and you get 59. The average is not 59. The average would be 59 inches. It is not 59. Put 59 in the exam I'm giving you, you definitely lose a point. It is not 59. It's 59 inches. That's a big deal. Alright, let us do one more problem. Suppose you want an 85 average. You want an 85 average. The grades you got in so far, 88, 92, 86, and 90. Maybe the teacher tells you, look, I'm going to give you B regardless of what you get. But if you get an 85 average, I'll give you a 90. Excuse me, I'll give you an A. The question is it possible even? Well, you're a few points short here. Actually, you're 7 points short here. And you can actually borrow 7 from the next one exactly. When you borrow 7 from the 92, that's 85. And you add the 7 here, that's 85. Okay, what do you need to get on the last exam? You borrow 1 from here. Well, let me just put it here. So you have nothing but 85s except on this exam, this exam, yes, an extra 6 points. Well, that means you can get 6 points less than 85. You just need a 79. So if I borrow 6 points from here, that means it's an 85. If I add it here, it's an 85. I got nothing but 85s. That's what average means. It's the same as if you got a 78, a 92, an 86, a 90, and then a 79. It's the same as just getting all 85s. That finishes this section on averages.